Games 5 and 6 of this clan war between KyZ and Bravestar will be between the blue Zerg in the bottom left-hand side, Scarlett, representing Bravestar, and in the top right-hand side, the red Terran player from KyZ Gaming, INnoVation. It's 3-1, which means that in a best-of-7, INnoVation just needs one map to close this out for his team. Map score can still be very important. It's actually really close down around the playoff cutoff area. So map score may be useful as a tiebreaker. So the next map will also be played. We play all 6 maps, and it does have meaning for both these teams because it could be the difference between them advancing an extra round in the playoffs or being, well, you know, from Bravestar's perspective, being in the playoffs at all. So even if INnoVation wins map 1, we're going to have the second map between INnoVation and Scarlett anyway, as we get this going. A little heads up as the game starts that this is on the Korean server, so Scarlett is currently in Canada, playing on Korea. So there is some latency. I believe she's in Toronto, which is East Coast, so it definitely ain't the prettiest of latency that she has to play on right now. So that's something to keep in mind. INnoVation should have a bit of a natural advantage playing on the Korean server. But that's all I want to say. I don't like talking too much about the servers and this and that and all the rest, but I do think it's important to take note of that because, you know, especially in a matchup where people can be very quick to hate, I think it's just something that you can kind of like, you know, it's worth keeping in the back. At least I've said my part. At least I've put it out there, you know. Alright, so we're guaranteed 2 maps of this, which is cool. INnoVation vs. Scarlett is always a massive fan favorite, of course. As you do see the SCV heading down to the bottom left-hand side. Just going to check this was a hatchery first, which is important to know because now the Reaper can come across the map without any fear of Zerglings showing up into the natural or anything. So is Reaper able to come all the way down to the bottom left-hand side? So Reaper coming across is going to be showing up into the natural and just going to be having a couple of lings here already popping out. Reaper going to put some damage out, and we do have the factory already on the way with a second barracks soon after. So it's not quite a, it's because it's not quite a 2-1-1. Usually you go second racks and then the factory. Yeah, it's not really a 2-1-1, but it is. I think, is this a... It must be some kind of Hellion production into, like, bio after. So it's like a 2-1-1 with a few Hellions initially. It's a little bit weird. It's a little bit offbeat from INnoVation. And a little bit different. Tech Lab on that Rax makes a lot of sense. So you'll get quick stim. And it will just be joining those Hellions. So yeah, definitely some potential for aggression in this. That's for sure. And I guess I'll just say as well, just in case this does end up on YouTube, because there's 2 very popular players. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that sub button as we make our way toward 30,000 subs. And if you're watching it, then it turns out that this was actually a good series. I'm not 100% convinced with it being cross-server and so on, and I think INnoVation is just really, really good right now. And I think Scarlett's actually playing some of the better StarCraft 2 she's played in a long time, but paying plus versus INnoVation, that's a tough cookie to make crumble, you know? Yeah, it's a rough one. So yeah, it was 2 Hellions and now into this kind of like 2-1-1 setup. It's a little bit of a weird way to get going, as we're just going to see our Hellions and the Reaper backing away. The couple of Queens is continuing to produce as well. Now this depot setting up on the upper right-hand side. They're going to get a full wall off here. Interesting, INnoVation looks to wall off this area, but doesn't seem to care that much about this ramp and along this way at all. That's, especially when he, I guess because he's going to have the map control of the 2-1-1, but because of the lack of Hellions, you should be even more afraid of run-bys than usual. I guess because there's no 3CC coming in for a while, he doesn't want to go wall off here, because then it looks as though, you know, he's missing a third, and that maybe tells Scarlett what's up because of this Overlord position. So there's a couple things to look at in that regard. Means are going to get this Overlord kill, which is a nice start, of course, as Scarlett doesn't get supply blocked off. It's INnoVation caught in a mini supply block for the moment as he moves across the map. We'll bring the 2 Hellions across to join in with this, and Scarlett is, I'm afraid, going to die. Because what does she actually have right now? She's got Queens, Queens, and Queens. There are 9 Lings on the map, 14 more in production, but Yeah, I feel like she noticed what was going on here just a bit too late. Stim's already done, remember, so... yeah, this hits later than the usual 2-1-1, but obviously the off timing can really catch Scarlett off, it's kind of caught Scarlett off guard. And she gets all her queens here, though, and that means INnoVation is just going to stand back and just watch from a distance for the moment. And maybe Scarlett's actually survived, which is kind of impressive, because I actually thought she was in a lot of trouble right there. A lot of trouble, but not the case just yet. But now she's surviving. Well, Marines and a tank out down the bottom side, looking to push into this third base in a few moments' time. Tank gets set up. Marine's going to push through. Just going to see this Overlord hanging out overhead. Couple Lings going down already. The Queen's going to continue forward, and the tank fire pretty good to keep them Queens at bay. The tank on the low gun is just annoying to deal with right now. The Ling's going to get maybe a wraparound for the Banes to then connect. It only takes one Baneling. Ooh, those Marines just about lifted up in time, but it gives Scarlett the chance to clean up the siege tank, and by cleaning up the siege tank, she opens up a bit more of a future in the game for herself, right? Because now this push can't really continue. Now she can care a little bit less about that. And I think that's a pretty big deal. She doesn't have to keep on dealing with this. She can go back to droning, and she can get back on track. And a game where she's going to be ahead in upgrades, by the way. Remember that Terran third base, so it was only just now finishing too. So this wasn't like a super fast third. It wasn't the latest third we've ever seen. Especially off of like a 2-1-1 sort of setup. I know this was like a factory initially kind of built in Hellions 2, so it was a bit different, but yeah, it's still a pretty it's still a slower third base. So Scarlett actually has her Hydra Den done. She's getting Hydras up. Groove Spines is already coming into play, and away we go, guys. Away we go into a game 4 where Scarlett is actually maybe going to have some potential here to take a map. I mean, I know it's early days. I know it's still just the start of the game, but I like where we're at for the moment. I like where we're at the moment for Scarlett. Man, it actually gets me kind of sad that Bravestar weren't able to pick up an extra map along here, because if Scarlett can take one map, I think it's pretty likely INnoVation can still take the other, I'm not going to lie. But then, obviously, we would have gotten an ace match. I mean, now we're kind of cheering for Scarlett to go 2-0 so we get an ace match, right? It would also be kind of cool as these few Marines make their way out around the left-hand side. Some creep teamers continue to be cleaned up. Lings and a Queen and a few Hydras finally making their appearance, and now, with the Hydras especially, it's going to be very hard to continue dealing damage on this side of the map. Hydras are a really, really good, sturdy defensive unit. And I say that this is so weird because they're not. They're like glass cannons. They're super fragile. But Lingbane Hydra is a really sturdy defensive style compared to like Lingbane Muta. Like, it's very difficult with all the Lingbane to ever really get damage onto the Hydras. So I've been in trouble for saying this before. I'm like, oh, Lingbane, Hydras are so, like, such a defensive unit in this. But, like, actually, it's the composition that just works more defensively than the other Lingbane compositions. So, I guess basically I need to learn to rephrase what I'm trying to say. But basically, it's just stronger defensively than Lingbane Muta. And that makes a big difference because it takes away a lot of those continued pushes that Terran sometimes goes for. So that's obviously pretty good as we do see these Marines. I'm going to stim on down, and they're going to get a lot of the creep tumors here already. So a lot of creep going down. And as Lings come in from the right, the Marine is going to lift on up, and we're going to boost a way out of there. Hive from Scarlett is already built, and just going to be using the taking the chance to get a Lurker Den down as well. No real surprises about that as the Hive's coming in. We've seen Raynor really dominate with this style. I actually had some interesting discussions about this Lingbane Hydra Lurker style with some pro Zergs the last day or two, and it's kind of funny because, like, I'm not gonna lie, as this army gets cleaned up a little bit, Raynor makes it look broken, right? Because it feels like the Terran can do so much, and then Raynor just kind of gets Lurkers out, and like it feels like you can't really fight them. But I was talking to a lot of the other Zergs, and they say it's just so difficult to play, and they're like, we don't think it's broken because when we do it, it looks kind of bad. It's just Raynor is so good at it. And so it's like, it's almost like Raynor is just like a step above, so you can make it work that much better. Which is very interesting. So, yeah, I think it's just, like, that's kind of mind-boggling to me that Raynor is just like up on that sort of level. I mean, his results obviously make it pretty easy to imagine, but yeah. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see how Scarlett makes this work, because she loses 2 queens. That little drop on the left side being an annoyance. Big push on the bottom right. INnoVation just going to push straight down the 6 o'clock now. There's a lot of Banes morphing here. The thing is, lurkers aren't done just yet. And the first upgrade's only just started, so we have to fight this with Lingbane Hydra. She is going to come in from the left and right. I actually don't really like this for INnoVation. A lot of the tanks weren't sieged here initially as well. He is going to sneak away to the bottom right side with a lot of this Bioforce. Can he find a lift up here to just get out of there? I feel like Scarlett kind of let INnoVation slip out of this a little bit more than she should have done. I feel like with Scarlett coming in from this side, she should have been able to get the wrap to stop him getting to that corner. But, you know, that's a little thing, as we see these Hydras continuing up, and you can just see there's not enough to take down these Hydras. So, yeah, they're flimsy, but they deal damage real quick. So, they are going to put a lot of damage out there, and Scarlett's going to clean up for the moment. So, INnoVation getting pushed back up the right-hand side. Our Marines are still coming through, and a couple of creep teams being picked off. This little drop on the left is definitely working so far, as the other Ling's showing up. Marine's going to load into a medevac, and they will back away into the natural instead. So just being very annoying with this drop. INnoVation just consistently sticking around with this, maintaining these units, and getting so much out of so little. Obviously, always one of the signs of a very, very good Terran player. It's one of the things that's made Clem's TvZ so dominant as of late. Medevac then flies over Queens. So that kind of undoes everything good I said about him. INnoVation looking as though he was thinking about stepping on the creep, but now he doesn't. He's continuing with siege tanks. The problem is now the lurkers are coming up. Now you need to think about a future other than just siege tanks here as INnoVation. You need to start thinking about ghosts. You need to start thinking about liberators. I think those are very important things to be looking at here, because I just don't think the tanks alone really do this. The lurker's going to burrow up. No adaptive talents yet. So the problem here for Scarlett is that she's running into this fight like with a really, you know, hoping that she can get the lurkers burrowed, but the lurkers take forever to do so. Adaptive talents would have made that so much better. She lost a lot in the process there, and even at the end, she's kind of fighting out of range of the lurkers. So yeah, that wasn't the best for Scarlett, but it's still okay. She's still got a bit of money to spend as well. She could do with some extra Banes. The biggest problem is she only has 4 lurkers remaining in there unsupported, so she's got 2 more in the back as well. The problem is that they're just on their own, but actually she shows up with some Lings now. Gets a blinding cloud on the siege tank again. That was a big reason she was able to turn the fight around last time around as well. And now she's actually just going to push through, and INnoVation's in some trouble as Scarlett comes chasing with the Hydras as well. Don't go too far though, Scarlett. Don't give up units for free. As she leads by 50 supply coming out of this next fight. And double expanding to the 9 o'clock and the bottom right corner. So she has a choice of bases. She can rotate from one to the other as time passes by. And down the bottom right we go. INnoVation looking for another fight here. He's going to get burrowed up. I'm just going to see the bio continue to get pushed away up the right side. I mean, this job just will not do anything at all. The defense from Scarlett across the right side. We're going to see the couple tanks on the left. Few SCVs going down. The rest of this from Scarlett continue to come through as well. Because Burrow got a bio can come in from a couple different sides, but the lurkers are just so good against like just bio, so it's very difficult to really make a play in. It's got a couple of abducts, so these siege tanks just get abducted and killed. That's 3 tanks going down immediately. Bane Hydra lurk, you're going to push up as we're just going to be seeing. The lurker's going to burrow here. I mean, there's multiple tanks behind this wall-off, and obviously being in behind a wall-off especially means that it's very dangerous, because it's very hard to kind of get up there and to really deny them. Scarlett kind of headbutts in, and she loses a lot. INnoVation has been able to remax. Obviously, the top 2 bases going somewhat unharassed is a pretty big benefit to that. It's going to go out to the left side. And I feel like INnoVation... I mean, this is just the macro of INnoVation. Scarlett just needs to hit an economy a little bit, though, right? She can take down a base or a bit of eco in one of these locations. She gets rid of the innovation rebuild, and if she gets rid of that, this becomes a very different game, where it becomes so much more difficult for innovation to really keep on fighting this lurker style. She's just not getting that done right now. This group of Hydras alone, I mean, Hydras aren't really the units to do that. You just want to send like a good amount of Ling Bane at one of these mineral lines. She just seems afraid to do that. She doesn't want to give up too much defensively. She still has the bottom right, though. Don't get me wrong. She's still ahead on bases. So Scarlett's still okay in that regard. I'm just worried that innovation has been allowed to rebuild a bit more than he should be able to. As he runs into this fight. And this fight goes very well. A lot of lurkers going down. And wow. Scarlett just leaves the game. Oh, that's so sad after this was going so well. I mean, she lost this fight horribly, don't get me wrong. Let's just quickly look at it again very quickly. Fire comes in, gets the Vipers. The Vipers are useless. There's just not the support for the Lurkers here. So innovation just kind of runs into the Lurkers. He kills like 4 Lurkers. There's only 4 Lurkers left when he runs in. There's a little bit of Ling Bane Hydra from one direction isn't good. And then, because this happens on Scott's side of the map, innovation is already in the bases. So innovation's already able to run in and just deny them. Top right-hand side in the red as the series is over in favor of TvZ Gaming, but he's going to play for an extra little bit of map score. It's innovation, or is he? He's just going to send SCVs on the map, guys. As in the bottom left, Blue Zerg is Scarlett from Bravestar. I think a lot of people, especially, I kind of explained this between the games, but if I do put this on YouTube. Basically, I think innovation just has so much army on Scarlett's side of the map against a slow rebuild army that innovation is just going to shut down so many reinforcements, and that's why Scarlett kind of just leaves the game right then and there. So, yeah, I don't... It seems like a quick leave, but I actually don't really disagree with it, looking at the replay quickly at the end. Because she doesn't have any lurkers, she only doesn't have any banelings. She only really has, like, Lings and Hydras rebuilding, and they're just not going to survive against what's like 50 supply of bio in her bases. So she's basically relying on reproduction against an army already. Like, if that fight happens on Innovation's side of the map, she doesn't leave the game because then she has time to rebuild. But because it happens on her side of the map, she doesn't have the time to rebuild. And so it looks like a quick leaving of the game. But in reality, I think it's actually okay. I think it's kind of correct. Alright, 2 racks in the bottom right-hand side. So Proxy racking it up for the second and final map between Innovation and Scarlett, and it's going to be the final map of this entire series. And then we'll move into a fresh new best of 7 as we do have our SCV coming down into the natural. Going to see this hatchery building up here as well to begin with. Bunker going to start. Thing is, Scarlett has 0 information about this, so the first time she's going to realize what's going on is when this hatchery finishes. So when this hatchery finishes, you're going to be able to see, oh, hello, bunker. And that's not good. Now, she actually does have kind of gas mining. She's going to go straight to the Rotron because I think she just accepts that this hatchery is probably going to die anyway, so she needs a way to really break out of this. And the Rotron is going to be her way of doing that. Marines into the bunker here. The natural hatchery is under fire, of course. There's going to be seeing another Marine able to jump in another bunker in a few moments' time. Marines just popping out, rallying forward. Well, I mean, this hatchery is just going to die. The thing is, Scarlett kind of gave this up. When she went for roaches, you just accept the hatchery's going to die. And I think it's the right decision because she saw it so late. I don't think saving the hatchery is really much of an option anyway. Ravages will finish as we see a couple of throws of bars. Bunker's just going to salvage, and that will be that. As this Rax flies over the natural. Bunker from Innovation up on this high ground. Starport building up here. Just going to be seeing this barracks flying home. The Queen from Scarlett just continuing to nibble away at this Rax as well. So Did a pretty good job of this. Starport about to finish up. Cyclone's halfway along in this bunker. Will complete for a few Marines to jump in inside. It looks like INnoVation's just ready to build a CC in his main. The thing is, this is a very, like, one-basey follow-up. Like, he didn't rush into a command center, so he knows it's kind of roaches, and because of that, he knows he just needs to get units up, and that's exactly what he's doing. As he gets to lock onto the Overlord, pushes that back, trying to deny high ground vision. Scarlett going to double expand out of this. Well, honestly, not so bad for Scarlett, all things considered. He should, because she gives up the hatchery for free and doesn't try and fight it at all. You know, it really means that she didn't have to, like, waste anything initially, so she's actually done this pretty efficiently. You know, if she tried to... The problem is, if you try and fight that bunker going up and all of this and that and all the rest of it, then it makes the, you know, trying to just, you know, losing the hatch and all of that so much worse. But at least it happened now off of... You know, basically at least it happened now off of nothing else happening earlier, right? So, yeah, she's just able to kind of play a game. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a great game. As she gets here, she slows down the Terran player a little bit. She backs away, keeps the Ravagers alive. Has 3 hatcheries coming up. I mean, INnoVation is double expanding himself. But he was also not down on the natural just yet. You know, he's building a fusion core for BC. That's the biggest issue, perhaps. Obviously, with the queen count cut low, because you've been on just 1 hatchery for so long. That might be the problem. As this Banshee head's actually allowed to finish as well, and I don't mind that, because you usually build a Banshee for safety's sake against a... You know, when you're going BC, you build a Banshee first so you can defend some of the earlier attacks. And then then you go into the BC. And then if you don't see an attack coming, you can just cancel the Banshee. In this case, you already know there's roaches / Ravagers on the map. So I think it's just safe to just build the Banshee anyway, right? Because then at least you know it's already going to be there. You do have the Banshee coming down the left. Just gonna show up. I mean, just a colorless Banshee, but we'll still probably get a couple of worker kills. Gets 2, forces a pretty big drone pull in all fairness. Gonna be a Yamato on the way up from INnoVation as well, so getting set up to go into that Yamato, and that obviously adds a lot to this also, as we do just have Ravagers and Queens out and around to this right-hand side. Queen putting some damage onto this Rax, pushing it back to the middle of the map. Banshee through the top side. Moving around as well. A couple of Evo chambers on this natural. And yeah, our barracks just continue to fly away into the middle of the map here. A couple of factories coming up in the main base. No surprise that it's mech. If you're going to build Yamato cannon, mech is kind of the natural go-to. Scarlett seems to be kind of realizing what's going on, though, to some extent. Problem is always going to be she only has 4 queens and a spore crawler in the main right now. Like, it's just not a lot at the end of the day. INnoVation is going to straight up just target down some drones here. I don't mind it. Like, there's not much anti-air. He's not going to take that much damage too quickly, so you can get a good few drones almost guaranteed, and then you just kind of leave. BC still has half HP. He's going to find some overlords on the edges. Yeah. I think Scar's got a good idea that it's mech. I think the problem is she just isn't really still quite in a position... I don't know. Does she, or was she actually just looking for a 1-1 roach timing? I mean, that's also a possibility, right? I really don't know. I really don't know. Double armor on the way up from INnoVation. Like, she's going into roaches and missile upgrades, etc., but then she already had roaches, so maybe she just wanted to play off of that. I want to say she actually didn't really know too well, because A, no queens are really joined up together, although she didn't have a lot to join up together. And now she only just started the Spire, whereas if she knew, she probably would have had a Spire on the way already. Because obviously you need Corruptors. Pillars of Gold is a pretty open map when it comes to the 3rd base. Like, this is the more choked up 3rd, and obviously these rocks, if they go down, you've got a few different access points into the 3rd. And that can be really nice if you're going to go for like a Roach Ravager Corruptor burst, like this all-in kind of like just going to overwhelm you sort of attack. You can see she's already focusing the Queens over here, so she's pushing the creep up this direction. So units will be able to get up onto this position very early. A little supply block from Scarlett. Want to see if she builds Corruptors now to fight those BCs. And she's even bringing the Queens across the map to fight this as well. I still would. She starts a +1 flyer attack, by the way. I'd still like to see the... this Banshee's going to die to Queens. I'd still like to see the Corruptors. I mean, this is just going to be the burst, but like... I just feel like the Corruptors just help so much against the battle cruisers. Well, here we go anyway. A little bit disjointed. She does go from two different sides, taking those rocks down in the process. Problem is, she has to try and decide what she wants to throw some bile, and in a way, like, the tanks are the right option, but then maybe the battle cruisers would help as well, because these BCs are just sat here dealing damage. Now she builds... See, this is what I don't get. Now she builds Corruptors. I feel like it would have been worth waiting for the Corruptors for this fight in the first place. I mean, she kills 17 SCVs, so it's not all doom and gloom. She's had the Queens here. She definitely just needs the Corruptors for the BCs, because the BCs otherwise just going to come through and just trade out. Rav just going forward. Can she find the Corrosive Bile? She will get one of these tanks. No, she doesn't have the third Bile. There it is, finally, but now she's taking too much damage. Those tanks have fired way too much. The BCs are still here, and I think I would just... There's a reason it's usually like a Roach Ravager Corruptor attack, right? Like, there's a reason that's usually the way this goes. Because then if you have the... I can understand the urgency as well, though, right? Because the sooner you hit, there's less tanks up, right? So I can understand the urgency. So I can get behind, from Scarlett's point of view, what she was trying to do here. But obviously, I mean, hindsight is everything, and I'm judging off the fact that I got to see the fight as well. So I'm pretty sure Scarlett's also right now thinking, might have been better to wait for the Corruptors, you know? Just showing up. They're actually going to have in good enough numbers to get a BC kill right off the bat, so that's a good start. You know, Scarlett's up to 83 drones, so she's got an economy, taking a 5th base. It just is off of a lot of losses early. I don't know. It's like playable, but she's going to need to take some really good fights in the future. And I mean, killing off a BC already is really good, because if you can nullify the battlecruiser harassment, it takes away one of the big things the mech player usually plays around. So if you can shut that down early, you can really do... You can, you know, if you shut that BC harassment down early, quickly, you can really do a lot from there. Alien comes in, picks off a drone command center of INnoVation. Going to go up to the 12 o'clock, and just going to be seeing the BCs continue to set up together as an Infernal Pre-Igniter coming through. 2-2 upgrades. Pathogen glands already on the way on that infestation pit. Roaches and Corruptors from Scarlett going to be continuing up to the top side of the map, so looking for a bit of a push into this 12 o'clock position. Maxed out. Here we go. Honestly, there's only 2 siege tanks here. If there's a position to attack into, it's absolutely this one. I would like to see a little bit more of a spread on those roaches. Feel like she could have nullified a little bit more of that. Hey, these Widow Mines are going to go down pretty quick as well, though. She has a lot from this. Forces the command center back. She kills some tanks. She kills the Widow Mines that ran in. The only problem is she's still playing Roach Ravager Corruptor, which is obviously a pretty low-tech army, all said and done. But she is on her way to a high, so there is some progress being made. And North Infest is coming up as well. Maybe get toward Neurals here a little bit later on. Important to keep dodging away. You don't want to let those mines go off, though. And she's doing a pretty good job of kind of darting back. But that's obviously the frustrating part of this army that INnoVation has. You know, it kind of forces her to back away a lot, and she can't just stand and fight a lot of the time. Honestly, this makes me even more sad about the last game if she wins this one, because then we actually could have had an ace match in all of this. Well, it's not over yet, that's for sure. As she runs in here, she is going to eat a couple of Widow Mine shots off the start. In fact, she's going to eat quite a few and all. Okay, it was actually only a couple. I don't know how this Widow Mine didn't go up. It felt like it was locked onto something for a very long time. It just didn't ever actually fire. Yeah, Neuroparasite is the play from Scarlett, so that's going to be the way she improves this army, which it's a very good way to improve the army. Neuroparasite can do fantastic things. Can neural those BCs down, they can pretty much be kind of guaranteed to be killed. Versus joined up together on that right-hand side. Just going to be seeing the command center of INnoVation up on the 12 o'clock. Hanging around as well. Scans on the right. Hellbat Cyclone setting up as well. That's a good way to get Neurals going, isn't it? Just Neural the first few tanks. Now the other tanks are actually out of range to hit the Infestors as well. So Scarlett can really leap on this army. Oh, this is actually really good for Scarlett. The only sad thing is the tank came out of Neural and got a really big shot on the Ravagers in the middle of all of this. Good corrosive battles. Down goes the command center. And I kind of think this might be INnoVation really just dying here. Well, Ravager's still pushing through. Missile turret gets taken down. A few more battles and I mean, the Ravagers are running into a lot of tank fires, so they continue to die. There's nothing to really get rid of the Corruptors anymore, though. So there's all the commanders not being repaired properly. It will fall, and INnoVation loses another base. Loses his third. Cyclone gets a lock on, pushes the Corruptors away yet again. Pushes them out down to the bottom side of the map. A lot more Roaches, a lot more Ravagers showing up as we see the Great Aspire coming through. Parasite. Man, there's just no response to these. Like, INnoVation doesn't have the map control to stop these Infestors from doing so much as Scarlett accidentally corrosive fire their own Corruptors there. And these Neurals are going to fade away, but that's just going to do it. Scarlett takes the map. Oh, now I'm really sad that she didn't win the previous game when she was doing so well. Imagine we would have got taken to an ace match here. That would have been a really cool way to end this first series. In the end, TvZ Gaming, they still get the win. And that's obviously the important part. They still get the win on the day. This last map was mostly for map score, but that's actually still nice for BraveStar because it's very likely they get into a tied up position in that kind of playoff cutoff point. So every single map they can win to improve their map score is actually really valuable for them. So Scarlett really putting in the work and bringing out a win for BraveStar. It's a 2-4 final score in INnoVation and TvZ Gaming, bringing it home, and they will stay near the top of the league.